This is where you guys ask your questions. Any questions that you have on your mind. We have 4 great speakers, 4 great Gursikhs from different parts of the world here with us that have lived Sikhi, that do live in Chardi Kala. So, jo kuch puchna, tusi hon puch sakte hain. We do have 3 questions to start off with. Okay, first question that came was, is it a lack of Chardi Kala when you feel sad when someone dies? ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਮਰਗ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜਦ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸੈਡਨੈਸ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਮੀ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਮੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਆ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸੁਖ ਦੁੱਖ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਸਮ ਕਰ ਜਾਣੇ ਔਰ ਮਾਨ ਅਪਮਾਨ। ਸੁੱਖ ਤੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਮਝਾਂਗੇ, ਮਾਣ ਅਤੇ ਅਭਿਮਾਨ ਨੂੰ, ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਮਾਣ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਕੁਛ ਵਡਿਆਈ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ, ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਫੁੱਲ ਗਿਆ। ਜੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਿੰਦਿਆ ਕਰਤੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ, ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਬੜਾ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਗਿਆ। ਸੁੱਖ ਅਤੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਅਤੇ ਮਾਣ ਅਭਿਮਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਕੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਮਝਣਾ। ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੁੱਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਬੜਾ ਫੁੱਲ ਗਿਆ, ਬੜਾ ਚੰਗਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਦੁੱਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਮਝਾਂ। ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਰੀਅਲਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਸੁੱਖ ਵੀ ਦੁੱਖ ਵਰਗਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸੁੱਖ ਦੁੱਖ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਸਮ ਕਰ ਜਾਣੇ। ਔਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਰੀਅਲਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਵਾਕਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੁੱਖ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਕੀ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੁੱਖ ਆ। ਜਦੋਂ ਦੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਤੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਸੁੱਖ ਨਿਕਲੇਗਾ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਸਹਿਜ ਸੁਭਾਅ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਮਰਨਾ। ਸਹਿਜ ਸੁਭਾਅ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਨਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਮਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਦੀ ਵੱਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨੇ ਲੈ ਗਿਆ। ਜਿਸ ਕੀ ਵਸਤ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖੇ। ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰਨਾ। ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਰੋਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਛ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਗਲਤੀ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ। ਠੀਕ ਹੈ।
What Master Ji was saying was that a person who lives in Chardi Kala, lives in Akal Purukh's Hukam, for him both happiness and sadness are equal. So Dukh and Sukh are all the same. And because it was all Akal Purukh's Parna, so when somebody dies, it's Akal Purukh's Parna. It's not under my control, it's not under somebody else's control. It's all under Akal Purukh's control. So if you're living in the will of God, then we accept that. And it's not just an acceptance as if there's nothing else that we can do about it, but acceptance that this is what God wants, what Akal Purukh wants, and that we have to accept. Our life of Chardi Kala is that we consider both Sukh and Dukh, both praise and nindya the same. That we don't get affected by either. We don't get really up in our mood because somebody praises us. That reminds me of actually not a Sikhi related tale, but from a Jewish Christian point of view. There was a king called King Solomon. I don't know if you've heard of his name. And he himself was a wise man. And one day he calls his wise a fakir to ask him to create a ring for him. And the purpose of this ring was that if he is really up in his mood, that this ring will bring him down to an even keel. And if he's feeling really down, then looking at this ring will bring him up to a certain level. And so the wise man comes back a few days later, and on the ring, he created a ring. On the ring, it said, "This too shall pass." So what that means is that everything is temporary. When you get a promotion, when you get a raise, when you get anything that is really exciting for you, it's all temporary. It's going to go away after a few days or even a few moments. And if something bad happens, that's also going to go away. So our job is to remain an even keel, regardless of whether there's happiness or sadness in our lives.
Wahyu Ka Khalsa, Wahyu Ki Fateh. What Bhai Sahib was talking about in his lecture was that Chardi Kala is a state of consciousness. It's a constant state of awareness. And what supports the constant state of awareness is the Amrit Vela, is Bani, is Pat, is meditation. Because then your consciousness is set to receive what is good, what is bad, what is positive, what is negative, what is plus, what is minus, and it never shifts. The strength of a human being is your consistency, to not shift, to not drift, to hold a state of being and consciousness. Khalsa is that state of consciousness, to understand that whatever is the flow of life is what you flow into, and to sustain and maintain those 4 steps or principles that Bhai Sahib was talking about, is to maintain and sustain that level of consciousness, of awareness, so that your actions, your deeds, your thoughts, your speech, all that you touch is in that Chardi Kala. To me, that Chardi Kala means elevated spirit, exalted spirit. That we choose to live in that exalted spirit. We come to camp together to be an exalted spirit. And when you hold that consciousness, then anything that happens, if someone passes, leaves this physical form, you may feel something, yes. You may have a remembrance of what you did together or what you knew about that person or what you shared. But we also say, let that soul be liberated. We celebrate the liberation of that soul unto infinity, right? And by celebrating that, and don't we guide that soul out? Right? Through meditation, through the recitation of Bani, to guide that soul so that we have no attachment. And also that soul has no attachment to whatever that future is in that evolution. So to me, that's the most important thing to understand. And what I serve in my life, or what brought me to this pathway, was to be able to maintain and sustain the elevated state of consciousness, of being, that comes through Nam Simran, Nam Japo, and Bani.
Actually, I think this question pertains to you, or I would like to hear your, how is it possible to be Chardikala when you're having a hard time making ends meet?
Depends what ends you want to meet. But it's the same. It's everything that is being said, that it's not judged of what's good or what's bad, what end will meet, what end won't meet. If an end isn't meeting, then we look back into ourselves. That's the power of Nam Simran, to me. That's the power. It's like a mirror. Because what I understand Guru Sahib taught was it's not what's outside of you that matters. Somebody once said to me, but what's that person saying about you? And I said, I don't care what another person says about me. They said, no? I said, yeah, what's important to me is what I say about myself. That's what's most important, not what somebody else is saying about me. And if something isn't meeting, if something isn't coming together, and it happens in all of our lives, could be financially, could be career-wise, could be whatever it is, then I look inside myself, what is missing in me? What is the link that isn't connecting in my practice that's not bringing me whatever that is that I want, abundance, friendship, whatever it is, happiness within myself. And then I go back to that meditative mind. People say to me, well, do you teach meditation? I said, no, I don't. You don't teach meditation? I said, no. I teach how to have a meditative mind, how to have the consciousness of Charitala, the meditative consciousness to be carried through life. Anji?
I just have a question. I said talked about having a purpose. It's important to have a purpose, but with purpose comes expectation. Having a purpose means that you expect something to happen as well.
Only if you frame it to have an expectation. The question was, if on the one hand we say don't have any expectations, and on the other hand we're saying have purpose, so she's asking, how can we have purpose and not have expectations? My answer to that is that's your belief. That's not my belief. Soul has purpose. 3 aspects to soul. Atma is the soul. The purpose of that soul is to have and experience Mahatma, which is the greatest soul. When that purpose is understood within one's own self, there's no expectation, and then Paramatma, infinite soul, is realized. So to me, the practice of Charikala is from Atma, Mahatma, Paramatma, to reach that ecstasy of self where there's no expectation. Purpose is that I shall do that bani. I shall meditate. My expectation is whatever. So why put an expectation on the purpose when there doesn't need to be expectation?
When you're living a life of purpose, you are doing what God wants you to do. And if you are doing something that He wants you to do, He will have you do it the way He wants you to do it. So if you are having expectations that are outside of that, may not be met, so you just have to accept that Guru Sahib wants it this way. One example is Bhagat Puran Singh. Now, he lived all his life in service, but he started with serving one person, going from place to place. He had no idea how that purpose was going to be, and when is it going to be complete. Our expectation is that I'm starting this, and in X time from now, I should have attained this. If I haven't, then I feel as if I have not, my expectations have not been met. We are putting a timeline, but Guru Sahib may have his own timeline. So if we impose our own timeline to the purpose that we set, then we will be disappointed if it's not met. But if our purpose is that Guru Sahib has sent me to start doing this, and I start doing it, and then it's up to Guru Sahib to make it what shape or form it becomes. It can become worldwide, or it can become just one little oasis in the midst of the life that you have around you. So expectations will limit you. So your job is to just do what you're supposed to do and leave the rest to Akal Purakh, for him to manifest his creation or his purpose through you.
Next question. Next question is, what if you have mental health issues? How is it possible to attain Chardi Kala or to be in a state of Chardi Kala? Vijay thade koi damagi ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਰੋਗ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਜੇ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ
ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਰੋਗ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਆ। ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੋਗੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੋਗੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਵੀ ਰੋਗੀ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਸਾਡਾ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀ ਥਿੰਕਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਨਾ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਣਾ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਥਿੰਕਿੰਗ ਮੇਡ ਇਟ ਸੋ। ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੇਰਾ ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ, ਇਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਥਿੰਕਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਦਲਣਾ ਪਊਗਾ। ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਆਸਰੇ ਪਰਨੇ ਛੱਡ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜ ਲਵਾਂਗੇ, ਕੰਸੈਂਟਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਲੈ ਲਵਾਂਗੇ, ਔਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਿਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਅਪਸੈਟ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ, ਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਖਰੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਨੀਂਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ, ਔਰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੋਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਚੱਕਰ ਆਉਣੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਆਵੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸੌਂ ਕੇ ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਆਸਰਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਅੱਗੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਰੋਗ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਸਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਨ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਆਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ, ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਐਉਂ ਹੋਊਗਾ। ਜਿਉਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਕੋਈ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਫੁਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਫੁਰਨਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਆਸਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਗਾਈਡਲਾਈਨ, ਸਾਡੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਗਾਈਡਲਾਈਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਚੱਲਾਂਗੇ, ਚਲਦਿਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਐਸਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਊਗਾ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਡਿੱਗ ਪਵਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ। ਔਨ ਦਾ ਸਪਾਟ ਦੈਟ ਗॉड ਵਿਲ ਹੈਲਪ ਯੂ। ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਲਦਿਆਂ ਡਿੱਗ ਪਓਗੇ, ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ, ਗॉड ਵਿਲ ਕਮ ਔਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਫੁੱਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੇ ਗਾੜੀ ਅਰਪਣ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਤਾਂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਮੂਰਤੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਭ ਖਤਮ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਇਸ ਮਨ ਕੋ ਜਨਮ ਕੀ ਮਾਲਾ ਕੀ ਕਾਲਾ ਹੋਆ ਸਵਾ, ਖਨੜੀ ਧੋਤੀ ਉਜਲੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੇ ਸੋ ਧੋਣ ਪਾ। ਕਦੇ ਖਨੜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੀ ਆ, ਕੋਲੂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੇਲ ਕੱਢਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੇਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਕੋਲੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ। ਉਹ 'ਤੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਬਲਦ ਜਵਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਬੰਨ੍ਹ ਦਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਬਲਦ ਉਸੇ ਚੱਕਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੱਟੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਕੋਲੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤਿਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੀਹ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਔਰ ਪੀਸ ਕੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਤੇਲ ਨਿਕਲਦਾ ਸੀ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਕੱਪੜਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੇਲ ਕੱਢਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੱਪੜੇ ਨੂੰ, ਉਸ ਕੋਲੂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨੂੰ ਖਨਣੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ। ਉਹ ਤੇਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨੀ ਭਿੱਜੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰਾਂ ਧੋਣ ਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਉਹਦਾ ਤੇਲ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਸਕਦਾ। ਤੋ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਨਮਾਂਤਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੈਲ ਲੱਗੀ ਪਈ ਆ। ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਜਨਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਠੀਕ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ 2 ਜਨਮ ਲੈਣੇ ਪੈਣੇ ਆ ਕਿ 100 ਜਨਮ ਲੈਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ, ਕਿ ਐਸੇ ਪਲ ਖਤਮ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਗੇ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਆ। ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਆਸ਼ਾ ਹੈ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਰਗਾ ਬਣਨਾ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਾ। ਜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਲੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਲਾਇਆ, ਇੱਕ ਚੱਲਣਾ, ਸੱਚੇ ਨਾਮ ਵੱਲ ਚੱਲਣਾ, ਨਿਰਭਉ ਹੋਣਾ, ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਹੋਣਾ, ਤਾਂ ਜੂਨੇ ਤੋਂ ਪਰੇ ਹੋਣਾ। ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਐਸੇ ਕਰਮ ਹਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਸਾਏ ਜਬ ਹਮ ਰਾਮ ਗਰਭ ਹੋਏ ਆਏ। ਰਾਮ ਗਰਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਜਾਣਾ, ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਾ, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਰੋਗ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ। ਫਿਰ ਤਾਂ ਕਬੀਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਾਂਗ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਬੋਰੀ ਮੇਰਾ ਰਾਮ ਪਤਾਰ। ਦੁਨੀਆ ਕਰਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਈ ਆਖੇ ਭੁਗਤਣਾ ਕੋ ਕਹੇ ਬਿਤਾਲਾ, ਕੋਈ ਆਖੇ ਆਦਮੀ ਨਾਨਕ ਵਿਚਾਰਾ। ਅਸਲ 'ਚ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਰੋਗ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਜਦੋਂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਵੱਲ ਆ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਤੇ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ ਕਦੇ ਮਾੜਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਉਹਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਸੱਚੀ ਸੋਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ ਔਰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਲੈ ਜਾਣਾ। ਉਹ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਆਸ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਚੱਲੀ ਚਲੋ, ਸਾਰੇ ਰੋਗ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਣ।
Don't ask me to translate that. Basically, the central idea is change your thoughts and change your life. He's saying, apne man nu, we have to change the way we think about things. We talk about mental illness. Now, we're just talking about being depressed or feeling depressed. That's a state of mind, and that can be changed by reading Gurbani, by connecting with Guru Sahib, and changing the way you think. Now, if talking about, so you gave a lot of examples. I don't think I can translate the Kolu example. You're gonna have to figure it out later. We maybe just write down that shabad and then try to understand. I can't translate what Kolu means, so I'll leave that up to you. But if we're talking about in terms of mental illness, let's say somebody who's mentally challenged or they can't think for themselves, then that's according to the will of Akal Purakh, and that they cannot do anything by themselves, so you have to help them. And all we can do is just have the protection of Gurbani, and only Guru Sahib can help. And then just leave it up to him and just do seva of Akal Purukh.
If, sorry for you. If say there's a person who's mentally challenged and is born into that life, as human beings, we're supposed to have the one thing that separates us from all other species is that we have our own will to make choices, right? But someone with a mental illness so severe doesn't make any choices in life. So how does that affect his journey? Or how does that?
So the question is, when somebody is born with a mental challenge and they cannot really think for themselves, how does that, as human beings, we're supposed to change the way, we're supposed to do what we can do to change our lives. And what about a mentally challenged person? Well, that, there are some questions we cannot answer. This is a Akal Purukh's hukam, and maybe he's in that joni for a reason. And because he cannot do anything for himself or herself, and we cannot understand why Akal Purukh does things, and all we have to, when we don't have an answer, all we can do is, this is Akal Purukh's hukam. We have to accept his hukam, and then we have to do what we can to help that human being. And so that, again, the only thing that helps is Gurbani. So if we are constantly giving Gurbani to him and Naam Simran, then he is in a higher vibration of existence through you, and that is going to help him to maybe in the next life he will get salvation, or so maybe it'll. So when you talk about karam, you heard a lecture about karam the other day, I think, yes. So you cannot understand really what karma. At least I cannot. People who have an understanding of that, maybe can give a better answer. But some of the things you can't explain. Why Akal Purukh does things the way it is, and sometimes it's what we consider luck of the draw. But all we can do is maybe it is a task for us. How do we interact? See, what happens to us is whatever happens in our lives is a test of how we react to the environment or react to circumstances. So maybe it is a test of us, or there's a purpose of why that person exists, and if you have to find that purpose.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. A little bit I would like to just add on this. Actually, the names of diseases which are related with the mind, in fact, basically they are all on the physical sense, if I can say, because you may find a person considered by the doctors as a, for example, he has a mental disorder, or is born with a mental disorder or a physical disorder. But this is basically only the physical sense. You cannot read, and there is no machine which can read that a person is not attached with the Lord. Maybe in the inner sense, the higher level, he is always attached and he is always meditating on the now. So this is all a physical thing, and this is a subjective feeling when a person is really attached with God. Another person cannot feel it. It's only when you see the person doing those type of actions, his deeds really count, and you understand that he is a person who is really attached with God. And so these things really don't matter. As he said, a person is sent through a journey. Maybe he's physically or mentally challenged. But then basically the need of the person is, the mind is to remain attached with the Lord, ever. Yeah, thank you so much.
Are there any questions?
Yesterday we were sitting in a group and just talking about general things, and one of the Kana asked a question about how if we're meant to love everyone equally, how we can do that, especially with close family relations. And she mentioned specifically people who would give her a hard time about Sikhi or about what she practices, and they really look down upon her. How do you look past that
Ji Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So the question is, how do you give unconditional love in the worst situations, or when you're in a challenging situations?
Can I just add to
Hanji.
that? She mentioned some people are undeserving of that love, and she cited Hitler as an example.
So she's saying that some people like Hitler or others who did many atrocities to humanity, or anyone who's done atrocities. But the thing is that we're taught, there's a simple saying, and that is that if you don't see God in all, you don't see God at all. And that whatever a person is to us, we still see the God that's in that person, that there's a light that lives in the heart of every soul. So I learned that everybody, no matter who it is, someone like a Hitler, otherwise, still, I don't have to be attached to that person, nor do I have to like what their actions are, but they're still a human being, they're still a soul. So what can I do then? I can pray. But if I get attached to someone who I'm having a problem with, then I become emotionally invested into that. As soon as your emotions, you know what an emotion is? It's ego in motion, right? Once the ego gets into the emotion of a situation with somebody, then you start barking like dogs at each other. Well, you said that. No, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Why? Then you forget God. You forget Charikala. You forget that elevated spirit. You have to apply your intelligence and your consciousness. Applied intelligence has 3 steps. The first step is to comprehend, right? You're listening, you're hearing, you're comprehending. Second step, compare. Okay, this is what I believe, this is what I don't believe. And the next step is to bring it to the intuitive mind. Meditation, Nam Simran, creates what we call neutral mind. There's 3 basic minds. A negative mind, we know the negative mind. Oh, I can't do this, I could never do that, I'll never have, this will never happen. Where does that come in time and space? I never have, I never could. Where does that come from? Is it your past, present, or future? I never could, I never can. It's from your past. The negative mind, when you get stuck in that negative, do we know some negative people? Yeah, we all know some very negative people. A negative person is stuck in their negative past mind. They'll never go with you one step into your future. The second mind is called a positive mind. The positive mind says, yeah, but if I just won the lottery, I'd get all the money. If I just woke up in the Amrit Vela, I'd feel the bliss of Charikala. If I just did this, where does that come from? Future, right. So most of the time, most people's minds go from the past to the future. I can't do this, I'll never do that, I won't do that. Yeah, but if I just did this and I did, but I can't because, right? It's called a monkey mind in philosophical, psychological terms, right? But if you cut that in the center, there's what's called a neutral mind. And the neutral mind, it looks at what is the past, it looks at the future, because past is early warning, right? It gives you warning and experience. Future gives you projection into what you are. But the neutral mind is the Nam. The neutral mind brings you to that state of understanding that says, I am, I am. It brings you to that neutral point where you accept yourself and you accept everything else that exists around you. And to hold yourself into that state of being, to me, that is what true Bani is. That is what is the power of Guru Bani. To bring a balance and a harmony. And then it doesn't matter. Let somebody be in their negative mind. Let somebody say this or that. Let somebody do that. Don't get attached to it. Bhai Sahib talked about don't be attached. As soon as you get attached to that emotion, you become commotional. You know, how do we define karma? Motion to commotion, commotion to drama, drama to trauma, trauma to disaster. Right? You know, because everything you do is as a motion, right? If you let it go that pathway to karma, then yeah, you'll end up in emotion, commotion, disaster. What is dharma? If karma is that, then what is Sikh Dharma? Sikh Dharma is the path of the elevated spirit, of the Charikala. When the elevated spirit is supported through Gurbani, then that neutrality of mind, of that state of being exists in you. It's not what somebody else thinks. My understanding was when Guru Gobind Singh Ji gave Guru Gadi of Siddhi Guru Granth, he said that is independent to each and every one of you. Each one of us has an independent relationship to Siddhi Guru Granth. Because I can't tell you how you should do Mata Teka. I can't tell you that this is how you should approach Guru Granth Sahib. This is your individual relationship that's established, that supports you, that then spreads to others. Master?
Okay, that was all the time we had for questions. We're now going to move on to, we have a short 15-minute break.